friends. Welcome to the Fierce Calling Podcast. You're listening to episode 205, and I am so thankful that you are here. And I want to encourage you that every woman of God has a fierce calling. I hope that this podcast helps encourage you to take action where your passion, compassion, and conviction intersect. Through the guests that I have on the show, they share how they are doing that. And I just hope that it really does encourage or spark something within. Maybe God's been moving on your heart to do something. We talk about that in this show today. We talk about nudges and we talk about calling. And so today's guest is Stephanie Alton. She is a literary agent, a marketing expert, a wife, a mom, and she's going to share how profound moments happen when we listen to God. She's going to encourage us through the journey that she shares that she's been through thus far, the unexpected steps and small beginnings that God used to lead her right where she's meant to be. So we're talking about divine timing, open doors, and just what it means to say yes to God and listen for his voice. And Stephanie does remind us that every big dream starts with small, faithful steps. And like the scripture, not to despise small beginnings. So friend, I know what Stephanie has to share is going to encourage, inspire, and challenge you. So listen in while I have a chat with Stephanie Alton. What is threatening to steal your joy? What is it that feels so heavy right now that you could barely stand? God has a plan, and his plan is to surrender it. Surrender it to him. It might be a prodigal. It might be a relationship, a marriage, something with your job. So many things. We have so many amazing blessings, but there are so many things in our life that threaten to steal our joy. I'm Doris Swift, author of the award-winning 6-week Bible study, Surrender the Joy Stealers, Rediscover the Jesus Joy in You. And it helps women rediscover the overflowing, ever-present Jesus joy within that fills, empowers, and ripens the fruit that God produces in our lives. Using personal and biblical stories, I share how you can identify your joy stealers, surrender them to God, reawaken the joy within, and share the joy with others. You can do it on your own or with a group. Check it out, friends. Surrender the Joy Stealers. Rediscover the Jesus joy in you. It's available on all the online retailers. It's time to take your joy back. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you my friend, Stephanie Alton. She is an amazing literary agent and a marketing agent. She's a mom, a wife, and among million other things that she does. She's a busy gal, and she is with the Blythe Daniel Agency, which is my literary agency. So, of course, I love them so much. And we've connected over the years in a lot of different ways. I used to be a blogger in their blog network and just kind of connected at conferences. And Stephanie has an amazing story that she wants to share with us. So welcome to this show today. It's so great to have you, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me, Doris. I love getting to see you, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you being on. And we actually tried this once before, but we kind of chatted all the way through and we never actually recorded. But that was fun and I enjoyed it. And it was meant to be for that day. You know, sometimes we make
Yeah.
plans, you know, God directs our steps, and that was what was meant to happen that day. So this was
hmm
meant to happen on this day. So I would
Yeah.
love it. So I just, you know, how he moves in our lives and everything. And so I would just love if you would share a little bit about your story and how you're taking action where your passion, compassion, and conviction intersect.
Okay. Well, to touch back to what you were saying the last time we tried to connect, I think a while ago, today I was sitting there thinking, I was like, oh no, not again. This time it's going to be tech issues or something. And so I was thinking, there's probably got to be something really good that's going to come out of our conversation today. The last time we tried, we just went way off course and chatted all of our time away. And then this time I'm like, I'm probably well into my appointment time and I still cannot get in there. So um, I'm just going to believe that our time today is anointed and meant to be something important. But um, I think the most relatable way that I could share that God has moved through my life is how I became a literary agent. And I think it even started when I felt the calling to become a writer. But I'll fast forward through that part and then get to the good another good part, because there's two really divine interactions that I've had with writing specific, but this one led me to my job. And um I had met Blythe Daniel of the Blythe Daniel Agency at a writers conference, and pitched her my project. It was my first writers conference, and I made every single rookie mistake you can make. So if anyone's thinking about writing, you're in good company. And I come with a humble heart. I've made all the mistakes, um, and I still make mistakes now. So uh, there's that too. Um, I met her, I connected with her. It was like right when Facebook was like the ultimate thing. It was so cool. And if somebody was your accepted your friend request, it was even cooler.
Mhm.
So after the conference, well, she had told me no on my project politely. She's like, well, do some work on it and then send it back to me in like 6 months. And I was like, yes, I didn't get a direct no. So I took that with like a little bit of a dose of excitement. And I friended her and she accepted, and I was like, major win. And then I just kept an eye on her because she would share about different conferences she was going to, or little events that she would do in Colorado Springs where she lives. And I had family. Still have family there. So I always kind of like was watching to see if when I was going to Colorado, if she was doing something. And she always had so much interaction. Like so many people would respond to anything she posted. And again, this was years ago, over 10 years ago, when Facebook was like so cool. Um, and one time she posted that she wanted somebody to review a movie for her. And I thought for sure there would already be like dozens of people saying, I'll do it, I'll do it. But there was no one there. And the post had been up for a couple of hours. And so I sheepishly raised my hand and say, I'll do it, thinking she was going to reply with, no, you don't have enough email subscribers or a big enough platform or this, that, and the other. But she said yes. And she not only sent me one movie to review, she sent me two. And so I thought, oh man, I've got to get this done right away. Like it's top priority. And so I watched the movie and took a bunch of notes, and I did the review and I sent it to her, and we were just corresponding about, she's like, so have you been working on your project and this, that, and the other. And during this season of communicating with Blythe, we had recently moved to Colorado Springs to be near my husband's family. And we were living in my sister-in-law's basement. It was finished, it's nice, it's beautiful and everything, but it's still basement of your sister-in-law.
Mhm.
So the job that my husband had was paying him probably about 25% of what he was promised, which was a significant sting. We were basically living for free and could not get by. So I had this calling with writing, and I'd been blogging and doing these different things. And one afternoon, evening time frame, I left my bedroom. I was walking out. I had just finished doing some writing, and I was like, all right, God, you want me to do this stupid writing thing? I need to get paid for it. And I was thinking I was going to get an article that I had never written, and it was just going to happen or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I need to get paid for this. It's taken too much time and I need some money. And so I just left the room with my sassy little attitude and went on with the evening, probably cooking dinner and getting my littles in bed and stuff like that. And so the next morning, as my alarm went off, I popped open my email because I had I'd been in communication with Blythe, and she'd been sending them early in the morning because she's an early bird. And I was looking to see if there was anything there, and there was. And she was like, this is probably going to sound so strange, but I feel like God is asking or telling me to ask you to come and work with me. And I about dropped the phone. I was like, "Nuh-uh, no way." And she was like, "I really would love for you to come and help launch this blog network that I want to put together." And she's like, "If this is just too weird or whatever, and you don't want to do something like that, I would still love for you to be a part of it and do reviews and stuff like that." And I was like, I had to, put the phone down, go on with my morning and keep my cool and make it look like I wasn't going to say yes like instantly. I had to like, leave a little bit of time in there. And so I was like, yes, I would love to do that. And from there, I did go on and start um, helping her with mailing books for publicity campaigns that she was doing, and coordinating the blog network, and doing just basic communication, keeping track of things. And then as that re- got into a really good rhythm and had a good sense of things, I just started saying yes to anything she was asking me to do. And it evolved into me going with her to writers' conferences, and seeing from the professional side of things how she would respond to pitches, and brainstorming with people on the fly. And it I just really came alive in that. I could hear what people were trying to say, and I would be able to pull that out of them and help them turn it into a message of some degree. And whether it was like book worthy or article worthy or something, it was still being able to hear what people were saying and turn it into something else. And so from that, I started working more on proposals, and then started taking my own pitches and representing my own clients. And then over the last couple of years, over the last year, have been doing publicity campaigns with Blythe as well. So it's like, it's not only been, it started so small, and just little yeses all along the way, and coming up with different ideas, and always just interacting with more people and listening to different stories. And um, I've, in essence, kind of become a gatekeeper of, I guess that's what people call publishers and agents, and people on the publishing side as gatekeepers, like letting the messages in. And I had this aha moment a couple of weeks ago at Bible study. I was just taking notes, listening, and um, I had this thought. I was like, like I years ago would say that I always wanted to reach out and have a good connection with new believers, and kind of help lead them to the gate. And I was like, oh, in some degrees, a gatekeeper in a personal life and a gatekeeper in my professional life. And so, like, I'm thinking there's got to be something in there about the gate that I need to look into more. But I think that's the gist of like what where God's moving professionally for me, is just sending me incredible people like you, and others to interact with and work with in different degrees, and just maintain relationships, encourage people, help them amplify their messages, and um, I, I guess just keep showing up in different ways. So I think in a nutshell is what I've been up to and what I do and how God led me there.
Wow, I love that so much. And first of all, I want to say that it's very encouraging that God can still take our sassy little attitudes and do something with it, right? How many times have we like said, God, I can't do this, or what, da, 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 da. Anyway, God isn't really interested in our insecurities. He's interested in our willingness to
Mhm.
go. We see this with
Yeah.
Moses and, all the people in the Bible that like, I, what, me? I can't do this. And it's like, well, of course you can't. I'm going to help you do this. And through me, you are
Right.
able to do it. And just a
Right.
sweet story that so I feel like too that God moves us where we're meant to be. So, I'm going to move here because of my husband's job, but that didn't really pan out exactly as we would have thought it was supposed to, living in this
Hmm.
beautiful basement, but yet, still struggling
Yeah. Yeah.
financially. And, the whole thing with the open doors, but I love to kind of how you remind us that not to despise the small things, as the word says.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
started by raising your hand and saying, okay, and that's what God's looking for. Like,
Hmm.
send me, right? So, wow,
Yeah.
that is so
Yeah.
special.
Well, just on a side note, my husband did get another job and we did get our own house, and we lived in a beautiful home in Colorado for many years, and then we recently, well, it's going like 3 years now. We've lived in Texas down by the Gulf of America now. Um and it's been a lovely location to be in as well. Not as majestic, just majestic in a different way. So he did go get another job, but it was just not what we expected, and it was just such a season of it being not what we expected. And the joke at the time was the weather was so unusual for Colorado, so even the weather was unexpected when we went there. So like
Mhm.
all the small talk things were unexpected. So um yeah, and I see that now, like even in different events and ministry things, I think people are always waiting for someone to sheepishly raise their hand and say, I'll do it, even though that you have like this massive gut wrenching fear of uncertainty or feeling unworthy or not um, equipped or trained or whatever. So I have an unusual background for publishing. I have an unusual story for publishing. I've done all the things wrong. I've done a lot of things right, but I've
Mhm.
done some things wrong. So
Yeah.
uh, it it's owning your mistakes and adapting and moving forward. So
Yes, and learning. Yeah, and everything that
yeah,
we do wrong, we learn from. So I think we
yeah,
learn more from what we do wrong than what we do right. I think
hmm,
in a way,
yeah,
and two, how it's amazing how God equipped you along the way. Because sometimes women and some of our listeners might discount themselves as being able to do something because they haven't gone to college for it specifically, or they haven't had any
hmm,
background or experience. And God, He is a God of on the job training. Would you say that, Stephanie?
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm living proof of that. I've always had a fascination with writing and have had some skill in that area. So it's not a totally far stretched. It's just like unbelievable that like something you dreamed of as a child
Mm.
comes to fruition.
Hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily in my own power. It was something that God ordained. And I I can't deny that. It's just so undeniable. There's no way that Blythe had any idea that any of that was going on. There is no possible way that she knew that I prayed that prayer, nor in that tone. There's no possible way I would have known what she was thinking on the other end. I mean, even if you looked back through the email records or whatever, there was no indication of what I was going through or thinking or wishing for and praying for, and there was no indication of what Blythe was needing on her side or what she was thinking about doing. That was just ultimately divine intervention.
Yeah. And I just love how over and over and time again these things happen, and there is no
Mhm.
possible way it could be anything else but God. And like you said, she didn't have any idea what was actually going on, but it didn't matter about the details. It just matters
Mhm.
about being obedient and saying,
Right.
and how she was like, I really feel like God is telling me to do this. And she did it.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
we
really cool.
both had that sheepishly raising our hand thing. Like she was like, this could be really weird. I
Yeah.
understand if you don't want to. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'll review a movie. So like had, neither one of us taken those unsure steps forward, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so um that
Yeah.
is one time I'm so grateful I listened. I mean, not that like every other time that I've listened has it been rewarding to some degree, but I feel like that is one of the most profound times that I listened and then something life
Yeah.
changing came from it.
Yes. It's powerful how we have these kind of milestone moments in our lives where we can
Mm.
pinpoint and we just don't forget it. It's just something that we can always
Right,
look back and see God's faithfulness and, how He actually sees us right where we are. That He does know us personally, that He does see us, and that He does care about our situation and,
right,
how He steps right in. And sometimes things happen quickly, like your experience with what? Like you had just prayed that. I had a similar experience with her. And so
hmm
she is just an amazing woman of God. And it's just for her, too, that she was open to listening to
right,
what he had to, tell her and to just step out, like you said, and just that you both stepped out in faith and did this. And look what has come from it, the fruit that has come. Because through you,
right.
Stephanie, I mean, you have all so many different clients. I know that you'll send me pitches for your clients about being on the
hmm
show, and I'm always like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great fit. And you just have this like natural instinct that God has given you to know what is a good idea or what is a good message. So when someone brings you a book proposal, it may not always look like what they think it should look like, but you pull things out of
Right,
it. So what has been like
right.
some of your experience with that, how you can pull stories out and help them develop it, and like you said, help them with developing a message that they might not, maybe it was a different direction that they even thought they were going.
Well, this is probably another odd connection to that, but naturally, I'm a person who likes to like sit in the back of the room so I could slip in unnoticed and leave without notice. But I think it's because I'm always trying to read people. I'm looking at how the room's responding. I'm just I'm an analyzer of people, and I think I've always grown up that way. I've always just like walked in and read the room and like always been very aware of tone and messages and stuff like that to some degree. And I just found that it translated into um, people's writing. And sometimes when I meet with people one on one, I can do better listening and hearing what they're trying to say, sometimes better than what I can on paper. And sometimes I'll see something really good on paper and want to talk to someone. And I think it's so that I can get that barrier down on them and then really hear it from them and get a good sense of who their audience is and who comes to them for what, like what is it that people are coming to them for? And I know I'm not the only agent that looks for that, but I just try to hear what somebody's trying to say and get a sense of who their audience is to make sure that there's a match. And then the third element would be is like, how are they saying this differently
Mm.
than how it's already been said? What are they doing different? And so I think it's a combination of like reading people, looking at their message, looking at their audience, looking at what's already been done. And then I think I'm always playing a little bit of a matchmaker. I'm thinking back, okay, who told me they're looking for what? Like, and sometimes it's a podcaster or knowing who likes what. And then sometimes it's a recent call with an editor or somebody else. Maybe I know somebody looking for an article or a guest post or something on that topic. And then it's like my brain's like, oh, squirrel, this person needed this and this person has this. Let's see if we can do some matchmaking here. And so I think my brain always has like 37 tabs open or more. And it's like, running through all these different things and then somehow AI is going on in there and it's like matchmaker, matchmaker, let's connect them. And so I don't know. There's no good way. There's probably like a better formula for this, but
Mm.
just with the odd way my brain works and um what I do, that seems to be my science, the science behind what I do.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course there is, I've got to factor in who I'm already working with. So if I have a project similar to something that's being presented to me, I look at the person and I'm like, is everything they're going to turn out going to be very similar to what I already have? Or do I even know anybody who would take this on for anything? And
Hmm.
so some of that also gets factored into it too. So there's no like straightforward answer on that. But
Hmm.
that's kind of how I get there.
Yeah, I love it. It reminds me of, when you're young and you play the memory game with the cards on the
Hmm.
table and they're all kind of face down. So we really don't know what's under, what the card
Right.
is. And then you kind of
Hmm.
flip them and go, oh, wait, I remember this card is over here in the right
Yeah.
top corner.
I'm really good at that game.
Yeah, I imagine.
That's interesting that you said that because I'm pretty good at that game.
Yeah.
And whenever I would play, my boys had a game like that, I think for when the movie Cars came out,
Hmm.
with Lightning McQueen and Mater, they had a little game set with all the little cars in there, and I would always win. But then I was like this, I can't be that kind of mom and just always, like not
Yeah.
let my kids win. So I would try to help them too. So it felt like I was winning all the way around. Interesting that you say that, like connection point. I've always been good at that game.
Yes. Isn't that funny? Because if we look back, and those of us who can look back on, on our life and see like where has God actually really equipped us? Like that we might
Mhm.
not connect the dots when we think, oh, we're not
Right.
equipped or we can't do that. But there are certain skill sets and certain gifts that he's given us, talents that we develop. I mean, there's certain things that we want to do, but we just really can't uh it's not like our calling and it's not really what we're wired to do. So we can try and we can try and we can pray and God can help us do it, but it's not maybe our wheelhouse. And when we find
Mhm.
that sweet spot, it's like so amazing. So what would you share with someone listening today who has thought, I really would love to write and I just don't know where to start? What advice would you give someone listening today? Because I can't say that. Statistically, someone listening today, or several listening today, will have thought about that. So, what would you say, Stephanie?
So if I was looking back to when I started out and things that I would do differently, and then add that to what I look for in a writer, I would honestly say some of the best ways to get started is by writing articles and setting up some sort of newsletter. I say that because platform is a big piece of publishing. So if you want to pursue publishing, it's really important to know what your message is and who your audience is. And some of the best ways to discover that is through consistent communication with a group of people, and it will start small and it will grow slow until you figure it out, and then something will click, and then it will go much faster. Um, and then the reason I suggest writing articles is because it will help you learn how to fit into guidelines. Each
Mm.
publishing play like magazine, local newspapers, those are great places to start. Those local ones, start small and build that relationship with them. Keep showing up for them because they're going to teach you how to meet deadlines, fit into a certain word count, and be able to learn how to take feedback. And they're giving you feedback not to hurt your feelings. You get feedback to help you be a better writer and to fit into what they need. And so um, that will also start building your platform as well. So you'll have all those articles under your belt and you'll have a consistently growing newsletter under your belt. And if you think about it, you're going to spend all this time writing a book and getting it published, and you may not sell as many copies as you hope for, but you may reach more people with those articles that you're sending out or those newsletters that you're sending out, because eventually you're going to get to an outlet that distributes to thousands of people, and your message that day is going to reach thousands of people. And who knows, maybe one day your email newsletter list, email subscribers, we're hoping for those to be in the thousands. And so over time, this message that you have within you is reaching so many people through these ways that are going to help you get a book deal, but you're feeding people all this time, and you're learning your skill, you're honing your craft, you're defining your message and getting an understanding of how you can offer what's in your heart to people in a way that they'll receive it.
Mm.
So that, I think, for a beginner would be two of the best ways to start it. The rookie way to do it is to never publish anything, to attempt a book proposal, write this big book, and then it fits nothing. And then you feel devastated when you go try to take it to an agent and they're like, no, I'm sorry. And it's not because they want to crush your dreams or your spirit or anything like that. It's because the writing doesn't fit into industry standards. And when they look at your platform, they see that it's going to be a challenge to sell a lot of books until you really get an understanding of how some of that works. And so starting small will help you grow bigger down the road.
Hmm. Thank you. Such great advice. And how you talked about it helps kind of train you for learning how to write and, like you said, meeting deadlines and word counts and actually honing in on the craft of writing, because it's a craft and you can
Mhm.
continually learn and grow in it. There's opportunities for conferences. If someone is interested in meeting Stephanie, they can check out where she's going to be in different conferences for writers. It's
Mhm.
so important to attend those. But like Stephanie said, start small. And I think that's one of the themes that is coming out in this episode. And I think it's going to encourage a lot of people, because we always want to jump to the big step when we're
Mhm.
waiting. But the small steps add up to big steps. And we're
Yeah.
been entrusted, with with gifts and things, and God has even, I mean, we have stories to tell. We all have a story, and we've been entrusted
Mhm.
with it. So but I love that you have encouraged to write articles, and there are so many publications that look for it. Where would you say, like
Right.
Publishers Weekly, or where's a good place that people can go and find opportunities? I mean, they just kind of come out on social media a lot of times too.
Right. Yeah. It depends on your friend group on that too. I see a lot of opportunities through there, but that's probably my friend connection being in the publishing industry. So I may see a little bit more of that than others. I honestly think if it's somebody just starting out or somebody looking to add something to their list, I would take a serious look at your free newspaper, the one that you find in the restaurants, the one that um, may still get delivered for free, whatever your local version of that is called. Scope them out, see what kind of articles, do a little bit of research and see
Mm-hmm.
what they talk about in those local papers,
Mm-hmm.
because they're always looking for somebody. And a lot of them will pay you like 13 cents a word, 12 cents a word, I think. And usually it would be a 500 to 2,000 word article. So it's not a significant amount of money, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something. But don't discard the free ones. Um, Go with the free places, guest blog on somebody's site. Sometimes that's a little more relaxed than a publication, but those local outlets are one of the best places to start. And your first article may not get picked up, but keep trying. If they give you any feedback, apply it to your next article or make a revision to that article and send it back to them if they will allow that. Um, and I think searching through Google or whatever search drive you use, you'll be able to pull up their website, or you may already know what their website is because it would be on that paper, and then look for the editor and submission guidelines and follow those directions,
Mhm.
because that will go a long way when you can submit something that they're looking for. And I think something Blythe has taught me is that when we're sending proposals to editors,
Mhm.
our clients will sometimes be frustrated with us because we do so much back and forth before we will send it to an editor for consideration. Is we try to make the editor's job as easy as possible. We want to make sure that they have everything they need, anything we can think of that they would think of. We want to include that information. We want to make sure that the writing is in their style. We do a lot of thoughtful action steps to make sure that
Yeah.
the editor's job is as easy as possible to take the project and move on with it without having to do a whole lot of um, work. And so, if you go into submitting your article with that kind of mindset, making sure that your article is going to need the least amount of revisions or the least amount of edits, and it fits the word count and their style and all their guidelines, you're going to make their job easier. And then the next time your article lands in their inbox, they're going to be like, yes, let's see what they've got going on, even if it cuts in line of others, because they know you're going to do a good job. So it's hard to do a good job if you don't know what they're looking for. So take that time to make sure you figure out what it is that they're looking for and then give it to them.
Yeah, give it to them. That's right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and two, because there's so many times that it's so frustrating that maybe writers will submit something and they have not read the submission guidelines, and
Yeah.
so right away it's like boop, it's out. So to do your due
Mhm.
diligence, but I love how you recommend looking for the free newspapers and the places that you can write, and even if you do it for free at first and eventually you might find that there's places that will pay you for it, but also it's it's
Mhm.
building your literary resume and your building
Yeah.
experience, which is really cool. And that's what agents and publishers look for as well. But there's a lot of even secular publications that have a faith section, something that they concentrate on, something faith based, if they
Mhm.
want to promote something going on, like maybe churches in their area and things like that. So yeah,
Mhm.
there's so many opportunities. And yeah, this has been just such an enjoyable conversation. And I know that the listener has been encouraged because it really can apply to a lot of other areas in our life, not just writing and publishing. Just
Right.
starting small, stepping out in
Right.
faith and obedience, and just trusting God to see what He does. Sometimes it's like next day happens where He answers a prayer, and sometimes it takes a little bit of a waiting. But I think you've shared just an incredible story of how God can really move when we pray and ask for that. So thank you. Is
Mhm.
there anything else that you might want to share before we close? Something encouraging that you can say that might just be an impactful statement or something for somebody that's listening right now.
Mhm. I would eh, pay attention to what God is telling you, because sometimes He tells you the same thing multiple times and we ignore it. And oftentimes, some of the biggest blessings are in what it is that He's telling you to do. Even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable, you have a thousand reasons to talk yourself out of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably the thing that you're going to thrive the most in, especially if you've got that message multiple times. Like, I think there's times we get a nudge and we just move past it and we don't ever hear from God on it again. It's the times when He's like nudging you multiple times. It's like, okay, let me let me consider it a little more. Let me take the first step and then and go into it. So um whatever it may be, whether it's starting a new business or adding a member to your family or doing something completely different than what you've done now. Like, God will lead you in the right direction. We just have to be open to hearing that and taking that first step.
Yes, that is so encouraging. And I know that someone listening today it's something that they really needed to hear, because sometimes life can be so hard and we just don't see what's happening. Like there's nothing
Mhm.
happening, and or maybe they just don't feel like they have any direction, what is my next step? And we shouldn't be anxious
Mhm.
about anything, as the word says, and to be anxious about what our next step is. But I love that advice that you
Right.
just gave. Be open and just pay attention to what God is telling you and how he'll repeat it over and over in different ways through different people. And,
Mhm.
sometimes he just wants to hit us over the head with, like, hello.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and something one last thing is, like, I think back to when my boys were babies, and I just I absolutely loved being home with them and doing things with them. But I also felt a little bit disconnected from the world, which I was, because I was in my home in rural Missouri, and there wasn't a lot around me. And so, like, I felt a little bit lost to some degree. But all those times playing memory with my kids and doing different things, it wasn't lost. It's being used in other ways, and
Mm,
paying attention to what my children need maybe helped me pay attention to what others need now. And so, like, all of those things where we're obedient in a season, even though we feel like, oh, this isn't all that I can be, but and maybe that's the case, but it's not all that you're meant to be right now. And so, like, the time, I'm so glad that I didn't rush through anything with my kids, because I'll never be able to get that time back. And I think now, as they're much older, I would really feel lost if I would have thrown that time with them out the window and tried to force something else. And so I'm glad that I was obedient and enjoyed that blessing of being able to stay home with my kids, because I know that's something that not everybody gets to do. But as they've gotten older, my opportunities have expanded, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's God's hand keeping me where I need to be and opening doors as they're supposed to. But it also kind of coincides as I get freedom from my home responsibilities too. And I I see that there are so many other agents doing so much more than I'm doing, and I have way more clients than I have, and do a million other things that I do. And I think a couple of years ago had a major aha moment, and it's like, it's not my time yet. Like, I am doing what I'm supposed to be. My number one job is making sure that my boys turn out okay. And then I'm also doing something that I very much enjoy, which is in publishing. And so it's just that it's not really a balance, it's juggling. But I know that when my season of being a hands-on mama is done, then maybe I'll be even more hands-on with more clients and stuff. So I've just had to learn to say no to some things so that I can say yes to the right things. And sometimes my yeses are a little more leaning towards home life than professional life. And that is just where I'm at right now. And I'm okay with that, because I don't regret the time I've given to my family.
yeah. Wow, that's golden right there. Because how you kind of talked about that the skills and the way that you parented and still parent your children, your boys, your boy mom, um, it can actually be applicable to other things in your life, and it actually enhances your skills and things that you could do, like listening and finding out what needs are and that kind of thing. And the fact being that we have different seasons in our life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that seasons can't overlap too.
Right.
And it's kind of like Florida. I live in Florida, and like one day it could be like 30 degrees and the next day it could be 80 degrees. So it's
Right.
like winter and summer overlapping or something, or spring or whatever. And it's not necessarily a
hmm
cut and dry thing. So that's really great, because there might be someone listening right now that feels like, I am not walking in my purpose. But open your eyes, and as Stephanie has encouraged us to do, see where we are right at the moment and just live in that moment and just do like one step at a time. And God opens the doors in the right season, and not to fall into the comparison trap, because
Right.
yeah, you just covered that. So that's such an important reminder that we're all on different roads, but all of our roads ultimately lead to Jesus, for
hmm
our heart to, share. And, whether it's being, a mom at home or out in the workforce or whatever we do, that we glorify God and just share Jesus with the world and the love of Christ. So, well, thank you so much for being on. And I would love if you would share, how can the listener connect with you?
Well, if you're a writer, we do have a blog network. Well, it's evolved into a blog and podcaster network called the Book Pod. So we do have a Facebook group that we're in when we have opportunities open up, and we'll send the only emails we send from there when we have opportunities available. So I would love to connect with you there. If you've ever had an interest in reviewing new release books, or if you're a podcaster looking for guests, we would love to have you in our community and be part of that. I also go to probably two, maybe three conferences a year. And that's where I'm in the boat of I can't do too much. And so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of keep it to a few. I am sometimes on social media. If you remember, I am naturally in the back of the room. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't generally put a lot out on social media. I just am a total hypocrite on that because it's such a key piece for influencers to have a presence there. And I've had a really hard time knowing like some of the hardships that some of the people in my feed are going through. And then we only tend to post the highlight reels. And I feel like it's such a rub in that I've just had a significant internal conflict, and I've done nothing. And so that's probably, I know it's something I have to work on, but so I am on Instagram sometimes.
Okay. Well, thank
So
you for being honest about that, because I think a lot of us feel that same way. And there's times
yeah.
where we post and not post or whatever. And so I thank you so much for just being humble about that and to really share your heart on that. And so great.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And if you are listening today, we are so thankful that you were here. And we know that God had something for you in this episode that you were meant to hear today. And I'll have all the links in the show notes and the information that we talked about. And Stephanie, I hope to have you back on the show sometime.
I would love that. Maybe I'll come back when you celebrate 300 episodes.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because you just had your 200 episode, or released your 200th episode. You're probably well into the 200s now, so I'll
Yeah.
come back and celebrate with you.
That sounds amazing and prophetic. No, I guess I'm going to do 300 then.
Yes, you
or
are. Yes,
over
you
that.
are.
Okay.
I
Well,
believe it.
thank you. Thank you so much. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much again for joining us today on Fierce Calling. And we hope that, this really blessed you. And if it did, we would love if you would share it. And and if you would rate and review Fierce Calling, it will help others find the show. And Stephanie, I look forward to talking with you more, and looking forward to also some of the other great guests that you're going to send me, because it's just always amazing. And so, friend, thank you so much. God bless you, and we will talk
You're
soon.
welcome. Thank you.